Basketball is usually a joy to watch until those huge fumbling 7-footers start doing things that are so painfully awkward you just have to look away. Sometimes it's the fault of reporters for asking silly questions, and sometimes it's the fault of referees for deciding on calls no one can get on board with. But mostly the awkwardness comes from the fact that most NBA players are just extra huge goofballs. So today, let's take a look at some of the most awkward moments in NBA history that's still making us cringe to this day. But first, a simple reminder on how to enter our brand new giveaway. We will be giving away either an iPhone X Max, the new iPad mini, or a MacBook Pro. It's all your choice. So be sure to leave a like, comment the keyword, subscribe, and turn on notifications to enter the giveaway. It's really that simple. First up, what's going on with LeBron James's hair? You ever have one of those nightmares where you would be standing in front of a crowd, everyone's eyes are on you, and your hair just starts randomly falling out? No? Okay. Well, this all too common nightmare became reality for the King while in the middle of an intense game against the Utah Jazz just last year. If you grew up watching James all these years, you might have noticed that he wears his headband a little bit higher each year, trying to hide the fact that his hairline is continuously receding. But this type of thing is difficult to conceal, especially when it happens in the middle of a televised NBA game. Anthony Davis tried to discreetly call LeBron's attention to the fact that his hair, or his hair plugs to be exact, were all over the place. James tried to move his headband a bit to hide the mess, but he ended up exposing his bald patches further. It was very unsettling to watch the whole thing. Next is when Steph Curry left Draymond Green hanging. NBA players all have different ways of celebrating a good play. Some people, like Draymond Green, love to give high fives to his teammates who just executed an excellent finish, while others are more like Steph Curry, who would very much like to celebrate alone. Put them together, and you've got a world-class recipe for an awkwardness disaster. While in the middle of a hot streak against the Knicks in 2013, where Curry dropped 54 points, no big deal. Curry got so busy shimmying that he couldn't even stop to honor Green's offer for an up top. What made it more awkward was that all the cameras in the arena were focused on Steph that time, so everyone saw how Green was left hanging. Obviously feeling bad about leaving his teammate hanging, Steph took a photo on their team plane, high-fiving. Next is when Stephen Curry gets a dose of his own medicine. 4 years after leaving Green high and dry, good old karma came back to collect its dues. After a highly energized play against OKC, Kevin Durant ended up on the floor and Klay Thompson helped him up. The pair didn't notice that Curry had his hand way up in the air waiting for any of them to take the high five. It was incredibly awkward for Curry, but he was quick to recover. Instead of sulking about his unreturned enthusiasm, Steph simply high-fived himself. Yeah, pretty awkward, I know, but hey, at least he kept a positive attitude about it. What about when Kevin Love and Wesley Johnson couldn't even shake hands right? If you think there's nothing more awkward than a high five left unnoticed, then you clearly haven't watched Kevin Love and Wesley Johnson try to tap each other and fail miserably. While it's customary for players to give high fives after high-intensity plays, they usually keep the hand taps down low when it's time for free throws. This time, Johnson tried to go for the down low, but Kevin Love saw his hand a bit late. Love still went for the clap, but Johnson had moved on. When Leslie noticed that Kevin was still up for the mini-tap, he noticed that the distance between them had become too wide, so he simply walked to his spot. But Kevin Love was not one to give up, and all awkwardness aside, they were able to seal the deal. What about when the Pistons didn't even try to shake hands? Another piece from the NBA's historic archive of awkward moments was so unsettling it even found its way to the 2020 docuseries The Last Dance. I'm talking about the Detroit Pistons refusing to shake hands with Michael Jordan and the rest of the Chicago Bulls team that beat them in the 1991 Eastern Conference Finals. Sure, at first it was very uncomfortable and awkward for the Chicago players who lined up, expecting some show of sportsmanship after a well-fought battle, but in the end, the discomfort was all on the Detroit side as nobody appreciated sore losers. Apparently, it was Isaiah Thomas's idea not to shake their competitors' hands after the game. In his documentary, MJ said he still doesn't feel right about what the Pistons did on that day. Next, when the Mavs crashed Russell Westbrook's dance party. one thing to mess with a player's rhythm in the middle of a competitive tussle, but messing with someone's pregame rituals, well, that's just on another level of rude. Unfortunately, that's exactly what Mavs players Charlie Villanueva and Justin Anderson did to Russell Westbrook back when he was still playing for the Thunder. Everyone knows it's part of Westbrook's ritual to do silly synchronized dances with several teammates before every game. It might look funny to the rest of us, but apparently it gets him pumped up to always be the monster that he is on the court. No one should take that away from him. But Villanueva and Anderson did, so they got shoves from Westbrook himself. A video of the awkward exchange went viral, but Westbrook and OKC got their revenge by eliminating Dallas in convincing fashion. Next is TREVOR Booker sneaking into the Cavs huddle. Nothing says awkward than getting busted for doing something naughty, right? While the Brooklyn Nets were playing the Cavs in 2017, when Nets forward TREVOR Booker wanted to be sure who to guard in the next play. And what better way to do that than to hear the play straight from Cavs coach Ty Lue. Lue was so intent on coaching and drawing up a play, and the Cavs were too intent on listening, that not one of them noticed that an infiltrator was in their midst. Coach Ty almost gave Booker something to do on that play too, until he realized Booker was wearing enemy colors. Luckily, the coach and Cavs found the whole thing funny. We know some of the other coaches didn't, but Ty Lue just broke into contagious laughter as he kicked Trevor out of his timeout. Busted. What about when LeBron James missed an alley-oop? As they say, even the best fall down sometimes. LeBron James has been struggling with signs of aging in recent years, and his receding hairline is not the only evidence of the fact. Back in 2015, he tried to sink the same dunk he's done hundreds of times before, but couldn't pull up enough to actually score the basket. It was a moment of pure embarrassment for the King, so luckily there was a friendly face in the opponent's team. When James turned back after the missed alley-oop, he saw Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, smiling at him, seemingly mocking his fall from grace. The two shared a moment of laughter, mutual respect, and quiet acceptance that their prime is nearing their end, and it's all going to be downhill from there. Next up, when Nate Robinson almost broke his neck trying to get on Paul Pierce's back. As I talked about earlier, different players have different ways of celebrating amazing victories. This time, it was Celtics teammates Robinson and Pierce who just couldn't agree on how they wanted to celebrate PP's winning basket against the New York Knicks in 2010. As Paul zoomed to the other end of the court to fly like an airplane, Nate was hot on his trail trying to get a piggyback. The two were so awkwardly uncoordinated that both of them ended up on the floor, with Robinson almost breaking his neck. Victory almost turned to tragedy, and we hope Nate at least learned his lesson and started celebrating with both feet planted on the ground thereafter. Next we have when Russell Westbrook walked out on reporters after this overly dumb question. The elite point guard has never been particularly warm to the press, and he never cared to hide his disdain every time he got dragged to those pre- and post-game interviews. Well, I guess we can't really blame him. Some of those sports reporters can be really dense sometimes. Case in point, after suffering a loss from Utah, all Westbrook wanted to do was change his clothes and relax for the night. But reporters soon swarmed him before he could even finish dressing, and he decided to be courteous and take a question or two. Unfortunately, he was met with one of the silliest questions ever asked in the history of post-game interviews. One reporter asked, "Did you guys lose this game or did the Jazz win this one?" Westbrook simply responded with an iconic, "What?" and walked away, saying the reporter was clearly tripping. Next we have when Chris Paul schools another reporter for another ridiculous question. That guy who asked Westbrook the paradoxical question of the century should feel lucky he only got walked out on. This reporter got a whole lot more than that. After LAC lost Game 5 of its conference series against the Jazz, their only choice was to force a Game 7. So when this reporter raised his hand and asked, "Will the Clippers be back here to play Game 7?" Chris Paul couldn't believe what he was hearing. So the reporter got an old school beating from CP3, who said, "What do you think? I'm on the team. What do you want me to say? No, it's over? That's what you want to hear? Yes, come on, man. You've been doing this long enough. Seriously, right?" But the reporter would not give up and asked Paul to elaborate on his answer. Chris simply pointed out the fact that everyone else was laughing, and there's a good reason why. Next is that there's always a good reason to laugh, but for Tim Duncan, unfortunately, he got ejected for it. Up until today, it's still puzzling why NBA ref Joe Crawford would throw Timmy D out of the game for laughing while he's on the bench. Trust that the light moment turned increasingly awkward and frustrating for Duncan, who wasn't even being confrontational about the whole thing. Crawford got suspended after the hullabaloo, so we could safely say, though, that Duncan did have the last laugh. Next is Doc Rivers calling Bill Simmons an idiot. Okay, to be fair, Rivers didn't actually call Simmons an idiot. All he said was he'd like to call the ESPN commentator an idiot, but he was too classy to do that. But same difference, right? This classy yet passive-aggressive outburst came on the heels of Simmons' comment that Rivers quit on the Celtics when he accepted a trade to the Clippers. So there you have it, some of the most awkward moments in NBA history. Thanks for watching the video.